Good morning. Our hand today is going to be Ace King. On this hand, I'm in mid position, low jack position, and I open raise. I think this is probably a suitable open raising range for me. Villain 4 calls. He is a tight passive player. With this player, I think the only hand he's going to raise pre-flop is aces. I do think he's probably set mining a lot. With his hands, he's 18-2. When we look at his mid-position stats, you can see that he plays about 19%, doesn't raise much at all. Whereas the limp, cold call 2-bets, about 23% for mid-position. So kind of think about what kind of hands is he willing to play. I think pocket pairs, suited connectors, suited aces probably. We could add more to get it up to like 20% range. That could be fair for him, but still he's a tight passive player. If he comes in for a raise, or if he raises me at any point in the hand, then I have to be very cautious. Villain 5 3-bets. He's playing seems to be aggressive poker. I've had 100 hands on him, and his 3-bet stats 9%, but it's 3 out of 32 opportunities he's 3-bet. And the other thing to note is that his 3-bets have really been when he's been in the blind. So twice when he's at the small blind, once from the big blind. And in those times he's raised or he's 3-bet early and mid position players once each, and then only one for the button. So it's not even like 3-bet versus steal or anything. He should have had one 3-bet versus steal if he's raising versus big blind. But it might not have been a big blind. It could have been like limps and then the button raises and then he 3-bets. That's entirely possible too. So this player, we just kind of have to go with what I have to think is a decent 3-betting range. Larger because he is shown out of 100 hands. Typically, you only get like 1 or 2 hands. He's raised it 3 times, and he's raised versus early position players. So maybe he's raising a little bit more liberally. This is kind of a hard range to put together with only out of 100 hands. Typically, I would do something pretty tight. But versus this player, maybe 9s plus, maybe like ace jack plus, and then king queen or something like that. That's about 7.5%. We'll go with it. Just something a little bit looser. He's not definitely. If it was this guy, I think it's aces. If it is, let's say this guy, it's probably a little bit tighter at 5%, a little bit more. Little bit more information on that player, so maybe like 10s or jacks plus, and then ace king, ace queen. So now it's back onto me because the other people fold. What do I call with? Definitely my range is going to be shrunk. This is a hand I do think we're calling with ace king. I think versus this player, I think we're raising with like aces and kings. I think we're calling with queens, jacks, 10s. Probably calling with ace jack and king queen suited as well. So let's get out these hands. Maybe ace jack. Suited connectors we're not going to play. I think we could play something like this. Maybe king jack. He could be making a move since we already have a caller. Nah, probably something like this. It'll be a tight range, and then so I do call, and then villain 4 calls, and villain 4 I think is probably going to shrink his range a bit. We're gonna keep pocket pairs, but we're gonna keep him. We already called, so maybe something like that. All right. The flop comes down queen 10-2 with 2 clubs. I do have a backdoor club draw. I've got a gut shot. Villain 5 has the initiative, so I think this is a spot where we can check. Villain 4 checks and Villain 5 bets. He actually bets about a quarter pot. What do I think he's going to be betting with? Quarter pot here. I think he's probably betting to keep hands in. Maybe he's betting because he's a little nervous. So pocket pair less than the top card, pocket pair less than the second card. The set, I would kind of expect him to go higher with that. So maybe the overpair is there. Same thing with the overpair. I kind of think the overpair would go higher. Top pair, maybe he's going to be a little bit hesitant, maybe worried about kicker problems. I'm going to give him the flush draw. I'm going to probably give him the flush gut shot as well. 2-card backdoor flush draws, maybe the jacks. Maybe he's aware of those. But I think he's playing hands like that. Does have the possibility that he's missed, like ace jack, in which case we're still ahead. So I think when we look at our hand, I think this could be a great spot for a set. I think this could be a great spot for raising our nut flush draws, probably even the second nut flush draw. I think a gut shot is probably going to be a call. 2-card backdoor flush draw is going to be a call. We said the sets are going to balance our nut flush draws here. But I think top pair, pocket pair, less than the top pair. The 9s are probably going to be where our cutoff is. That may be about 50%. Sometimes we call, sometimes we don't. It makes it difficult with Villain 4 in the pot, but with Villain 4, I think he's got a lot of pocket pairs that have just missed. And for being tight passive, he's going to let us know if he has a good hand. If he calls, he's got at least a draw, a solid draw. If he comes over the top, he's got trips. So I think we can call with this type of hand. We already said he calls with that type of hand. Villain 4's probably only going to be top pair plus flush draw, open ender. I don't even think he calls with the gut shot. He's looking at like 36.4%. So I don't, even if I call, I don't think he's expanding his range at all. So I did call. Villain 4 folds. Let's get him out of here. And turn was a 7 of clubs, which is actually pretty good. It improves our equity if we've now picked up that flush draw. I think we're still up against possibility that villain has, junk. Let's say ace jack, maybe even ace king, we do want to see the river, so I don't really want to lead here and face a raise. If he raises it, we would really need the club draw. So I think my plan here was just to check and plan to call if he bets. And now he sized up a little bit. So once he sized up, we know he doesn't have the nut flush, so he could have king queen. Would he bet that large with the nut flush? Yeah. It's not pot size bet. It's about a half pot. No, it's about a third pot. It looks to be what it is. So yeah, I'm gonna give him flush. Probably give him top pair. Maybe even pocket pair less than the top card. Maybe with jacks. I don't think 9s bets anymore. I think we'll say he could be betting with flush draws, with the nut second and the third nut draw. I don't think gut shots betting, so we're looking at something like that. Definitely the flush draws, we're looking at basically pairs plus the flush draws. So he bets. What are we going to call with? I think if he's betting, I think we let him bet flush. We could check raise. I think that's a question. What kind of check raising range should we do? If we check raise, we're drawing to the nut flush and we're drawing to a gut shot. So if he calls, then we've got equity. We have room for. We could improve to the best hand if called. Do I think I'm currently ahead at this point? No, I don't really think that. So what kind of hands are going to be hands where I would check raise? I don't think I have any hands that would check raise, and I think that's part of a weak game or weakness in my game is that I'm not looking at this. I think this could be a good spot to have a check raise. So let's see what kind of groups we're talking about. So let's start off with the nut flush draw. If I check raise the nut flush draws, we're dealing with like ace king and ace queen. That's 10% or less than 10% because one of those is a pocket pair. If we check raise the flush, I think that's check raising for value. And then maybe top pair also check raising for value. Would we do it with all of the top pairs? Maybe not. Maybe if we don't do the king queen, if we just do ace queen, that works. We've already kind of checked out our sets, which unfortunately means that the other player is aware of how we play. He can look at this board and say, well, I didn't check raise the flop, so I must not have a set, which then allows him to call with two pair. I also think with two pair, if we had two pair, we would probably check raise that as well on the flop. Although on a flop like this coordinated with two pair, we'd expect flushes to call, we'd expect straights to call, gut shots to call, so, or at least the open ender to call. So it kind of puts us in a tough spot on the turn if we get, let's say, an 8, a 9, maybe a jack or a king. If those come out, and an ace, if those come out, it kind of puts us at a rough spot. So maybe this is a board texture where check raising the flop isn't that good. But anyways, I don't think we would check raise pocket pair below the top card. I think we would leave king queen in our check calling range here. So, just looking at that, and we might have way too many. Yeah, might be way too many here for us. So that's kind of what I was thinking for a check raise. But if we don't check raise, then let's go here. I think we would call our flush draws. Nut and probably second nut, I think, is what we're going to be calling. Third nut with the queen. Yeah, it would be tough. Tough to call that. I don't think we're calling weak flushes unless it's part of a pair. And really, at this point, I'm not sure if we could call with jacks again. He's now fired twice. If he fires third time, we're going to have to fold jacks. It seems weak, but I think that's what we're going to have to do. So I think we're calling 61.7%. You can see that I've got some bluffs here. There's some draws, and I've got some made hands. So I did call. And then river was the ace of spades. And do I fire out here, try to get payment? I don't think so. I think king jack could be out there. I think ace queen could be out there. Could be king jack. I think at this point we don't mind check calling because I think king queen is still there. I wouldn't check call with jacks. That's a hand that I don't think I would call with because with 3 bets, if he fires 3 barrels, he's got at least a queen. And I think this is actually kind of scary. So we did check, which we should, and villain 5 checks. And I think that's telling. Once villain 5 checks, I kind of think that eliminates his flush and probably eliminates 2 pair. So we're looking at top pair, middle pair, something weaker like that. So we do see the river, see the showdown. He shows king queen of diamonds. Was that in his range? Yeah, it was. We had it in his range, and actually, I didn't want to look at it because I saw 3-bet from cutoff. I'm like, oh crap, this is the cutoff. King queen of diamonds is what he 3-bet versus mid position. So, I mean, it's not a crazy hand to 3-bet. I do think we're getting his range down a little bit better. So That's a good news. How about hand reading? Were we correct in calling? We could probably debate that. If I check raised it at any part in the hand, would I have gotten the fold? Maybe. I think check raise a turn could have possibly gotten him to fold because we're representing the flush draw at that, or the flush at that point. But I think from his perspective, he has to think, why would I check raise the turn and possibly blow me out of the pot unless I have like the king, like a king high flush or the queen high flush? Would that make sense? So maybe he could call, but I think a lot of players would think about it and say it doesn't make sense for you to check raise me off. So I think he could possibly find a call with king queen. I'd be curious to see what some others would say about this hand. But we did get the hand, and it's good practice. Wish we knew what villain 4 had so we could check our range against what he actually had. But in any case, this was a nicely won pot. We backed into the ace high. The flop call may have been questionable, but we did have gut shot draws, and we had 2 overs and backdoor flush draw. So I think check calling was fine. All right, hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another hand.